This is the Elite Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we teach you the proven methods to grow your seven-figure business to 10 million and beyond. Please welcome your host, Brett Gilliland.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Elite Entrepreneurs Podcast. I am thrilled to be with you all again today, and I always get to say that I have a special guest, but today I have a special guest in more ways than one. Not only is he special because he knows stuff that will be very valuable to all of us, but he's special because he and I share parents. He's my brother. His name is David Gilliland. And he and I grew up in a large family. We are he's the closest brother in age to me. So we have a sister between us, and then he and I are the two brothers that get to hang out. We get to hang out and work. We've been working together the last couple of years, and we thought it would be really fun to just riff together on some common challenges that we see that seven-figure business owners face, and share some fun stories around that, and then talk about the difference makers. What makes the difference between those who struggle in some of the things that we'll talk about and those who are able to move forward and shift gears and grow their business once they pass that $1 million mark. So David is an expert in organizational behavior. He knows business. He's been serving small businesses for over a decade, probably closer to 2 now. I just can't count. And he's helped lots of business owners in that seven-figure space figure out how to move forward, how to move past some of the challenges that we'll talk about. So, David, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast today. Glad that you're here.
Glad to be here.
All right. So we agreed that we would, I can facilitate with some questions, but we agreed that we would just have a little bit of a chat. So this might be a little different in terms of podcast format than we're used to doing, but I think it'll be fun. So, and I think it'll be valuable for those who can relate to some of the challenges that we're going to talk about. So David and I have literally seen hundreds of business owners in the 1 to 10 million space struggle with some things. There's patterns that emerge in our working with these businesses, and we're going to talk about some of those struggles. And if they resonate with you, good news is we're going to share a few key things that you can do to start moving forward if you have any of these struggles. So David, let's start with some of the things that we often see seven-figure business owners struggling with that we could almost predict at this point when we meet one. What are some of those things?
Oh, one of them is we'll just talk a numbers thing really fast. It's popping to mind. It's like, hey, I have no idea what's going on. Like we were growing and growing, and now it's like we're stuck. They're like flatline. Their revenue has just stopped. It doesn't matter. It's like they're banging their heads against a wall, and they're just not breaking through. Or even more discouraging, they're telling me my revenues are going up. We keep making more sales, but I make less money on each new sale. Their margins are just dropping while their revenues go up. And they're like, I can't figure it out. Like, what's different? We're doing the same thing for the same customers, and things are falling apart around me.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. We've both seen it more times than we can count. I actually had a customer, a husband and wife team named the Trickets. They have a marketing company called Practice Promotions that I just plugged you guys. Trickets, we love you. Anyway, they put together a little graph, and they just showed how they just bumped up against an imaginary ceiling quarter after quarter. It was like, we can't break through. And the fun thing about that particular chart is that then they put a place in time where they started to do some work with our company, Elite Entrepreneurs, and then the chart starts to go up again after that.
Yeah,
in pretty short order, by the way. But anyway, they had the same thing that you're talking about. They just hit that spot, and no matter what they tried, they couldn't quite break through.
I had another one, same kind of ideas. It's like he had run his business for 20 years and he was still stuck going from 700,000 to $1 million and back down and up. It was just at this place. And he's like, well, maybe that's as much as my business can do. And right, they start learning their things. And, it's like 7 years later now, but to be at 30 million, that's a fun place to be. So you see this, like, what happened in between? Well, they finally got unstuck, right? They figured it out, and it's fun to see the change, but boy, it's frustrating up until then. And we get it.
Totally see that over and over again. Okay, so they hit a revenue ceiling. That's one of the things. Let's talk about the one where, and sometimes we have a little fun with this one, where the business owner feels like he or she is just completely tapped out. They're stretched way too thin. Sometimes we see this in the structure of the team itself, where the business has grown to a place where now maybe they have 10 or 12 or maybe even closer to 20 people, and by and large they all report to the business owner, right? Like, the team's grown, but the structure hasn't quite matured, or it hasn't evolved at all. And now everybody reports to the business owner, and everybody's going to the business owner with every little decision. I know you have a fun story around this one. I'd love for you to tell.
Yeah, now this one, you would think, no, the structure was there. They had these leaders meeting together, and we're there. I'm in their conference room, helping them to get set strategically for the year and where they're going. And, we've got 3 leaders there. They've got some 24 employees, and we're working on some hard stuff, and we're thinking through this. And then in comes, an assistant over here. She's actually over human resource and the office management things. She comes in, she's like, I hate to bug you guys, I just have this question. Got to figure this out. Like, okay, we can stop. Go ahead and ask your question. She's like, well, we have the company party coming up, and I'm not like, would you prefer cookies or brownies? It's just like, I'm dying. Like, you're really asking this question, right? And after she left, I turned to him and I said, common kind of questions coming to you or uncommon? And we have an open door policy. We want people to be able to come in with their questions. And I found out people are always coming in with every tiny or large question. They're all coming in. Like, oh man, it's this endless queue of everybody's there. How could you ever get anything done? How can anyone ever feel like they can even, stretch their wings out and do something great in a company if they feel like they have to get approval for tiny things like cookies and brownies?
Yeah, so we see this where a business owner may feel a tremendous weight on their shoulder. Sometimes it manifests as a little bit of overwhelm or burnout risk anyway. And then if we dive in, we see things like, oh, well, everybody's coming to you with every question. You have team members, but you're kind of feeling like they're not able to take things that maybe the right team members could take, but you never work with them or look to replace them if they're not the right people. And you just sort of, this thing perpetuates where everybody's coming to you for the answers, and you haven't been able to figure out how to organize work and really delegate to others stuff that shouldn't be on your plate anymore.
Yeah. So, and from the other side, you've got the employee who, this is one of the leaders talking with him, and he says to me, and I put forward my ideas, and the owner always seems to have more input, a different way of doing it, telling me why this won't work, pulling back on the reins. And I just have to wait until he decides to move on something. And so the people they put in leadership aren't able to lead at all. And frankly, that individual told me, it's like, if this doesn't change, Sue, I'm out of here. Like, I've got more important things to do with my life. So he was about to lose his actual support because it wasn't that the people didn't know how to act. It was that he wasn't letting them at all. Just micromanaging, not trusting some things.
Yeah, so we often see people we often see business owners. Let's be clear about who we're talking about. We often see business owners in this 7-figure space get stuck because they have a hard time relinquishing control. Sometimes that's because they're the ones that figured it out in the beginning and they got it to this place. And then it's like, if I let it go, it's going to get done wrong, or I'm concerned that, so-and-so is not going to maintain the client experience the way that I like it, or whatever fears we have. And that's common. It's natural to feel some of that. But if we hang on to it, then we've automatically capped ourselves at what our business can do. It can do what it's doing now because we can barely keep all of this together, and that's all we can do. So that's a big one that we see out there for a lot of business owners in this 1 to 10 million space. All right, let's do something that's a little bit related to that. The idea of relinquishing control comes when we can trust we've got the right team members, and a lot of people we see in this space have a hard time progressing because they don't really know how to hire to the vision of the business. They don't know how to, well, let's back up. Let's back up and talk about those who aren't even clear about the future because they haven't set a vision with their teams. What do you see in that space, David?
Well, I was kind of wondering from you if you'd had like some experiences. So, I mean, I see it a lot there where they're saying, man, I wish my team could just think like business owners. Why do I they can't seem to make a decision. And what they mean is they don't seem to make decisions the way I would. And they wonder why that is. And so they're always looking to hire someone just like them, which isn't always the right solution. That they're wishing they could find someone just like them. They feel like it doesn't exist. I hear a lot of complaints like, oh, this next generation, I don't know, I can't, And it has nothing to do with the next generation, right? What are you seeing?
Yeah, a slightly different angle on that I see is the one where the business owner feels like, well, the whole team feels like we can't do any intentional forward looking type of work because we're so busy delivering what we're doing now. Like we've set up our day-to-day work in a way that just has us cranking the machine we have today. And there's no intentional time to break out of that mode and build the next thing or make progress in a strategic direction. So whether it's this side of it that David's talking about, where it feels like they won't think and act like an owner, or the fact that all of us are stuck delivering today's requirements, getting and keeping those customers that we have today, not really building the organization muscle or building the business of the future. Both of those things lead to staying where we're at. And
I had one of those clients. I showed up because we're gonna have our meeting. We'd love for you to come, see what we're doing. And at the time, I was doing some of those trips, and so I went there. I showed up, and everyone was pretty much. It was like a big staff meeting, and a little dog and pony show is going on, and then they're talking about issues that they're just kind of circling. Right? Well, what are we going to do about this? Well, that kind of depends on what direction we're heading, and how are we going to take care of this customer? I don't know what their problem is. I mean, they were just everywhere. And then like people are bringing up like parking issues, and they're talking about like this customer need. And then they're talking about this new product they might want to launch. It was just all jumbled and talking everywhere. And afterwards, I didn't know who was supposed to do what. I had no clarity of what we were supposed to achieve. And so I asked the business, I was like, so how did that go for you? He's like, well, I think it went pretty well. Everyone seemed to be contributing, and we shared some important information with each other. It's just business is kind of messy like this, and so I like to involve them. And I said, oh, so what other meetings do you have? He's like, well, this is the meeting. We have this meeting regularly, and we'll meet sometimes as teams to take care of some things, but this is our meeting. This is where we regularly work on the important things in business. I was like, what in the world?
It's like the battle. It's like the battle royale, right? Where everybody's stuck in the cage together and we're all just going to talk about stuff.
Just talk about whatever. No clue where we're headed to. And no one else knew what was most important. No priorities about anything. No one owned anything leaving the meeting. At no point did we report on, here's what we're doing next, or here's what we did last time, and getting feedback. I was like, this was a meeting stuck in the mire. Like, you're not moving any direction. But they felt it was important to make sure everyone had a voice, which I am all for everyone having a voice. And there's places for that, but that's a big issue, is when we're not clear on how do we work together in an efficient way, an effective way, to really move the business forward, both strategically in the long term, right? Let's have some intentional meetings around that. And we need to meet for some of these operational messes that are going on. We need to just fine tune and keep improving. But bringing those together is a really chaotic thing. It just doesn't.
Yeah, there's a time and place for both, which we'll get into here in a little bit. So one last thing that we see, and we see lots of things, but in our list of some of our favorites today that we wanted to share, one last one had to do with, and don't take offense to this. If you can relate, don't take offense. This is the way it happens. A lot of these businesses start by hiring family and friends, right? And it's people that and it makes sense. It's people that you trust. And you're kind of in this foxhole mentality together, where we're gritting and we're grinding and we're trying to survive this startup phase. And then we get to this million plus, and the team's starting to grow, and there might be 6 or 8 or 10 of us. And now if we bring somebody in from the outside, it's almost like there might be a revolving door coming and going, because we don't really know how to bring them in. We don't know how to integrate them well into this team. There might be some weird family dynamic stuff going on that's hard for other people to play with. And then so we pay people to come in, we train them up, and then they move on to the next thing. And then we're in this really vicious cycle of not being able to move forward with our team because we haven't really figured out how to hire well.
Yeah. They're often saying things like, man, I feel like I'm just hiring people and training them up to go work for my competitors. I hate this. This isn't worth it. And they almost think, I just need to find the talented, skilled people who can come in and do the work now. And I think that's just a little short-sighted. That certainly happens a lot. And they feel stuck because all their profits just go to this one activity. It's like they never get around to really serving their customers.
Right. Turnover is so expensive, and we'll save that for another day. But whether it's hitting a revenue ceiling, or we see some growth still, but our profits are tanking, or it's this idea that the business owners become the bottleneck, they don't know how to relinquish control, or they're overwhelmed, or they're blending strategic and operational in the business, or they just haven't gotten over that point of figuring out how to hire beyond family and friends. These were some of the challenges that we see over and over again as we're working with 7-figure businesses. So whether it's any of those things or all of those things, let's shift now and talk about some of the keys that we've seen have helped business owners make that shift beyond that revenue ceiling that they were hitting, or beyond the chaos and the imbalance in their life, right? How did they get to a better place with time and money freedom? Let's talk about some of those keys together. So why don't you start with one of them, and then we'll jump into that, David.
Well, it sounds like a lot of the things that we're talking about, again, have to do with this owner being the indispensable resource that everyone seems to have to tap. Maybe they're working super late hours to keep up with the growth, or maybe they're being crushed by it. And it's this, like, you just can't be the bottleneck for the business. So somehow we have to get what's in our minds as the business owner, in our hearts, out, and the clarity of where we're trying to go, and getting clear, where is it I want to go, and then get it out of my head and into the minds and hearts of our team. That seems to be just one of the first things. If they're going to think and act like business owners and make really good decisions that help us to move forward, we got to quit holding it inside. And I don't think we intentionally hold it inside all the time. We just subconsciously think, well, doesn't everyone see it like that? And no, they don't. Your team, they can't read your mind. And so I just think one of the first key things to do is to really get clear. We like to call that, setting the vision, being clear about why are we actually in business? Why are we here? What's what's the big cool thing we're trying to achieve? And then who belongs on this team? What are the priorities? The way I make decisions, the things that matter most to me and to my key team members that are like, oh, if I could replicate them, I would. Amongst us, what are those things that we prioritize? What are the values we base our decisions on? So that I can get other people who will base decisions on those same values and priorities. If we can get that far, I mean, that's really, really huge, right? Just to make sure they're the right people. So get it out of our heads, get it into our people, and then help them know, so where are we going? You know, what's the big goal and why does it matter? So that they can get behind that and they know, oh, we're trying to impact this many businesses by this year. Wow, we're going to have to do a lot of growth. Yeah, that's right. So I think those are some really key things. Is nobody's a mind reader. Don't make them do it. Let's get clear and then help them to know it. They want to succeed. And quite frankly, they actually want to please us too. They want an attaboy. They want to, wow, I win. And they can only do that if they know the rules of the game.
That's a great one, David. One of the things that really jumps out to me with this one is, I love how you talked about, we got to get it out of our heads, right? We got to get it clear. But a lot of times the business owner, the whole team, we're just pulled into the day-to-day machine, right? Like, and some books out there call it the whirlwind. You might refer to it as firefighting or getting stuck in the weeds. Like whatever that day-to-day thing is that always pulls at you, it sucks you in. Sometimes that's in the form of our inbox, or for our email, or the Slacks that we have going in our bazillion Slack channels, or whatever's going on in social media, or calls or texts. Like stuff is pulling at our attention, and the business owners who figure out how to get past some of these things we talked about are the ones who break out of the chaos of the day-to-day and intentionally set time to get clear with their team. That's a huge one. So even if you just took a block of time that feels maybe too big at first, but would be manageable still, maybe you took a 1 hour chunk of your day and just spent time trying to get clear, that would be better than where you're at right now. Or 2 hours on a Friday morning, whenever. If you just blocked off a little bit of time on a regular basis to get more clarity, and then started helping others of your team get clear, that would go a long way in addressing some of this problem that we see all the time.
Yeah. And I love how you talked about that, and then help your team get clear. So if you've gotten clear, it can be in the middle of the firefight. It can be in the middle of solving the challenges that are going on, to just be clear and say, okay, we're trying to achieve the following. And this is a way we make decisions. Like, we do the right thing. This may be one of those priorities. We do the right thing, even if it costs us. We're going to do the right thing by the customer, and we're going to, live our work, do the things we said we're going to do. Maybe that's one of your values. Well, if you just say that right before, so now how do we solve this problem? It already sets the stage for them to win, right? And it doesn't mean that it gave the exact solution, but it's going to have them measuring it against what matters most. And they're going to go forward with that. And that's huge, that your team can feel confident that they're in line with what you most care about.
Well, David, one of the risks of putting us together on these topics is that we could go all day on any one of them. There were two more things that we wanted to make sure we got into this episode. So let's go to the next key for solving some of these challenges that we talked about on the front end. And that is hiring to that clarity. So you talked about getting clear. We use the term setting the vision. Now we got to learn how to hire the people who fit within that mold that you talked about. And this doesn't mean don't hire any diversity. This just means hire a bunch of diversity in background, experience, in you name it, but oneness or sameness in this set of values, in our way of being, how we're going to operate, how we're going to make decisions. And so there's got to be really clear filters, if you will, about how we're going to hire people. And then we only let people in who are going to match this way of being with one another. That's a hard one to transition to.
Yeah, especially because like when you go to look to hire someone, all anyone ever puts out there is, here's my experience, here's how smart I am, here's the stuff I've done before, right? And that's all most of us have really pitched when we're looking for someone. Here's your job duties, here's what you have to have done before, here's your experience levels, right?
Yeah.
And man, is that a formula for disaster.
Well, we all go there because we need somebody to do this work. We're like,
yeah, right now it makes total sense.
Yeah. So we go there and then we're like, okay, please come do this work. But we fail to recognize that the person we're bringing in to do the work needs to be able to feel comfortable to do their best work here, needs to fit in with this team, needs to be excited about this cause that we're all up to together. And if we're not bringing in the right person, then we get that revolving door of turnover, which is so expensive, so painful and time consuming.
Yeah. And I've seen it over and over again. The ones it's not revolving, but you wish that person would leave. They're extremely bright, very intelligent, the top person in the industry, maybe in your space, and they're in your company, costing you a ton of money and destroying the morale of everyone around you. Not actually serving things the way you want to, trying to make your business something you didn't even want it to be, because they're that competent and capable. And just the division that comes through all of it. So much money wasted, hundreds of thousands of dollars lost in direct expense. Forget the opportunity cost, direct expense for these highly valuable people who just don't fit your company and shouldn't have been let in the first place. You'll do far better to find someone who fits well, has a desire and some grit, and has little to no experience that you train up because they love it there. They're going to stay, they're going to be devoted, they're going to grow with you. But yeah, fit first with culture, then with the role. If you can get both, that's awesome. That's the big win. But yeah, such a tough lesson to learn.
And we go to family and friends in the beginning because we already have this level of trust, and intuitively, if we're doing this right, intuitively we're bringing along those who already share some common values that we have, right? So it fits. And then we start to hire others into that. We don't know how to hire for it. So we got to get clear about what it is first. That was the clarity piece. What does it mean to actually fit well here? And then how can I interview for that? Or how can I screen for that? Or how can I find out if they share those values, if they're excited about that same purpose that we have? So anyway, that's the second thing.
And it's completely doable. We call it our hiring gauntlet is what we call it, but it is a learnable skill, repeatable, and can be done in any industry by anyone. And that's the beauty of it. It's just, you just got to learn the skill.
Yeah. Everybody who's built a business to $1 million in revenue already learned several skills. They weren't necessarily a natural marketer, but they learned how to market enough to get to that place. They may or may not have been a natural salesperson, but they learned how to sell enough to get to that place. Just like those skills to get customers, you can learn the skills to get great team members.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that. All right. The last thing we wanted to touch on today is meeting rhythm. That's our label for it, but it's the idea that you would separate the longer term strategic items from the day-to-day operational items in your meetings. You wouldn't throw it all together in a hodgepodge and say, well, here's all the people who need to talk about stuff. Let's get in and talk about stuff. Because that's when we get into the endless loops that David was talking about earlier. So what does it look like to separate those things out a bit, David? What are, I don't know, a couple ideas for how to make that better?
Well, I mean, to start off first is this idea that if you're going to lead from this point on, you actually have to learn that meetings are crazy valuable to help you buy more time and focus. Without meetings, you don't have the time and focus needed to really build the business you need to build in order to succeed and grow the way you want to, right? And so first there's this, I have to learn to love meetings and instead of hate them, which doers hate them, leaders love them, right? And so I have to learn to love these meetings and I have to learn to get good at them. So that's like the first little mindset in there. And then the second thing that I find just really important is to set time aside to work on your business, annually, let's get clear where we're headed, what has to be built. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about what has to be done in operations, how they have to deliver, but we have to talk about building the business we need to be 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. We have to do it now. Otherwise, it won't be there then. It doesn't just happen. We have to build it, And so I love the quarterly rhythm of we're talking about the strategic things only, and I leave all operations out, where I'm not going to solve operational issues right now. We're going to build the future of what we need to do and become in order to deliver, next year, the year after that. I love that time and that clarity it gives everyone. So then when they're doing their day-to-day, now this may be a meeting that you have on a monthly, weekly, a daily huddle, even 5-10 minutes, all that operational stuff. We got to make sure it's done well. Well, that can align with where we're heading in the long term. Everyone knows, and this is where we're headed. So I'm doing this work right now, and this is how I'm operating the business today. And over here is building the new business that we're going to operate in 6 months or a year from now, right? And so keeping those separate is super important. Of course, you could have more strategic things that bleed in, that every couple of weeks, maybe you're having a stand-up check-in with that team that's pulled together to do a special project. Perfect. We want to have those check-ins. We can have a dashboard that tells us, but we don't want to mix those meetings too much. It just gets really hairy.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about teasing those things out completely. Just they're separate items. And if we do this consistently, we will see significant changes. Imagine going into your meetings and people rolling their eyes or dreading going into another meeting. If you're feeling that way at all, like this meeting isn't any good, then I invite you to hold up a mirror a little bit and say, how am I not leading this well, right? How have I confused the strategic and the operational, or let those things just commingle in a meeting where we just go round and round and never get anywhere? And so that's on us as leaders. We have to figure out how to separate those things. And this type of meeting gets this attention. That type of meeting gets that attention. And when we lead it well, people actually start going, wow, that was a productive meeting. I got more clear. I feel like we have more alignment. I know what we're doing. And that people value that.
Yeah, what I love is, that long queue, the line of everyone who wants to come into your office to ask all these questions. They know exactly what hour of what day is set aside for the meeting that's going to address that. Yeah. And they just bring it right then. They're freed up. They don't have to wonder, are they available now? Are they not? They can work on their work, and they just put it in their calendar. There's my note. I bring it to that meeting, right? It's beautiful. They love it. It saves them time. You love it. It will buy you time. Like nothing else. Well-run meetings buys you time to do the work that's most important.
Well said. Yeah. So we started off this conversation talking about the thing we often see, the little revenue ceiling, and we mentioned a couple examples. But going back to the Trickets, they brought me this graph, and they were like, "Hey, revenue ceiling," and then they put a picture of our logo on their graph that here's the point where we came across Elite and learned what we needed to do. Well, what they learned is what we talked about just now. They learned how to set a vision, they learned how to hire the right people, and they learned how to put a meeting rhythm in place. And within pretty short order, over the next few quarters, next several quarters, within 2 to 3 years, they had tripled. And that may seem like a long time, but think about it. You could spend 2 or 3 more years at the place that you're at right now, the painful spot that you're at right now, or you could be triple what you are right now. And not just in revenue, but in, you got more time, more space, more owners in your business, right? People who actually care about what's going on and can take some of the burden off your shoulders. So, and I mentioned the Trickets as one example. We've seen that time and time again, though, where the people who learn how to get the clarity, they learn how to bring the right people to the cause to get involved, and then they learn how to separate the strategic and the day-to-day operational, and they learn how to manage both those things. And poof, you start to see the breakthroughs happen, and all the things that you wanted as a business owner start to come into your life. It's like, oh, this is better. Things are getting better.
Yeah, I love how they talk about it differently. They used to be craftsmen, or they used to be great marketers, or they used to be whatever. And they thought growing their business more just meant they'd have to do lots and lots and lots more of that. And instead, they learn this new craft of leadership and how I organize a team and build them, right? And deliver results through others. They learn this new craft, and this new craft that takes a little time to learn. But once they've got it, oh, the sky's the limit then. Because now they have tens or hundreds of people that can do the delivery of the old craft, right? And the work that they do is just so much more valuable. And that's when you see the revenues go up and you see the profit margins go up, because you're doing more valuable work with your time and you're helping others be successful in their roles instead of being the bottleneck of decisions.
Yeah, it really is possible to build this winning thing where everybody benefits. And darn mirror, it's usually pointing right back at us as leaders. We got to figure this stuff out. So David, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. It's certainly very natural for us to be able to jam on topics like this together. I typically ask my guest how people can learn more about them or connect with them. So let's do that. Where can they learn more about you and what you're up to, or connect with you on social? How can people connect?
Yeah, great. I mean, you can always just go to our website, growwithelite.com, and you can connect with us there. There's several things you can, resources you can grab and this and that. But if you really want to kind of know these basics and understand them, then, I would suggest you look at our Elite Ignition program and get in touch with us. Or you could come to one of our events. You'll see those advertised there. You can get to know the community of great business owners who are implementing these things and seeing these successes, and come and learn from and with them.
Awesome. Thanks again, David. It was a pleasure. For all of you listening, please share, spread the word. We want to help as many 7-figure business owners as possible, because these known challenges have known solutions. And I'm going to keep bringing wonderful guests to help you in your journey beyond the place that you're at now. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Elite Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Brett Gilliland. Be sure to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You may also want to visit our website, eliteentrepreneurspodcast.com, to find additional resources to grow your business from 7 figures to 10 million and beyond.